Good afternoon. This is Firas, and today we are going to talk about Dynamo data. And this is that video number 20 in Dynamo course for beginner. And I will be trying to explain the concept of data and their types that we can have in Autodesk Dynamo. And specifically, of course, Dynamo for Revit. Data has been explained in different books and different resources I've been studying, and each book is, providing its own definition and its own types. I tried here to collect as much as I can find or I could find on these resources and put them in one video so it can make a bit easier for you to comprehend, specifically if we compare the types at the same time. It will be very general information. I'll try later on in the next videos to go into more detail in each one of them and see how they can affect their works. The majority of the books, of course, focus on the first 3 or 4 types of what I'm going to talk about here in this video. The majority of the books or the majority of the resources are actually focusing or describing data in Dynamo as whatever you can provide as an input or you can get out of those nodes that you have as an output. The most famous one and the easiest one actually is numbers. And numbers came to into our consideration into 2 types. They are either doubles, and when you can find that in too much digits and decimals after the point, and you can provide them as, or you can find them as in integers, where they are just a pure number, a complete number, where there is no fraction or precisions or digits attached to it. And of course you can find that in a different way. You can just right click and add a number or write number, and Dynamo will Dynamo will provide the suggested node for you. Click it and it will be provided, and you can add any number you like as a double. And the other trick is just add that as a slider, which is just right click and add slider. And anyway, these are actually I explained in the previous videos that I have, so I might drop you some link here to have a look at later on. And they can be either provided with the code block, which is just provided by double clicking. Same thing with the integers, and of course they are important part because they can tell how many units, how many members in the array, if you are making array, and you can just add them to any type of mathematical equations, and you can just divide them, combine them, whatever those basics mathematical process, or you can add them to more logical, and if condition, you can compare them to each other, and the type of output you're going to get, of course, will be true and false, and which is a type of information, or sorry, data, we can call it Boolean later on in this video. And you can even make a condition and see how the condition works based on that by comparing them, of course, to each other, and return the text for that. Anyway, so numbers, whether they are doubles and integers, this is our first type of data. The second type is called string, and they are, the majority is actually confuses string with text. Yes, majority of the string is text, but the string can contain numbers, and those numbers are actually considered as a text without the concept of their numerical values. You might go to the best way to understand that when you have the room name, it might be called maybe store 5 or level 5. Room names is a good example. Here the number is just a part of the text or the part of the name, and you can tell that if you can add a block that they are strings by having the 2 double quotations, or you can add them by right click here again and write string, and you can provide whatever you think or whatever you add as a text immediately. It will understand as it's been string, even if it have a numerical value to it. Some of those strings can have actually a mathematical process to them, and some of them will work like plus, minus will give you a null, whereas there is no data created. This is a dangerous concept that we have to get rid of it when we get it in a bigger values. And of course, there is lots of other functions and operation that we can do, like joining the text to each other to create one sentence. We can ask Dynamo to split strings and get us to get back with a list of their individuals based on defining the strings. Actually, heaps of terminologies here. You can count them, you can change them from lowercase to uppercase and so on and so on. I'll try to go deeper with each function, and each node you can add based on that in later videos, but that's the second one. So the first one was numbers, the second one is string, the third one is sequence and list. I came with the idea, some people just call it list, and I do prefer the understanding of sequence, because the concept of sequence, because sequence can happen, it's a type of list, of course, can happen when you have a way of a rule to create it, like a range, where you start up by 0 and end up by the value provided, with the steps, if you didn't provide it, will be 1. So this is a sequence, came by this tool or node, which is provide a sequence of number, came from an order or a type of a system or algorithm, whatever you want to call it. And we have the sequence again, and here it's starting from a value of a 0, then specify how many jumps or how many member you have, and we say it here 5. So 0 to 4 will, if you count them, will be 5, and each one of them will be stepping 2 from the previous one, and so on. Or it could be normal list that you just provide by opening the square brackets and provide the the data you want. It could be numerical, could be text, it depends on what you want to add, and it could be both of them in the same list. And sadly, those lists could be nested and could be simple as this one, as you see in the previous thing, or it could be nested, and that's what really freaks lots of Dynamo users. And it could be also more to nest inside each other. It could be made of numbers and strings at the same time, and even Boolean, everything. It can be a little bit of a daunting concept to understand list and nested lists. But anyway, we have dictionaries. This is the I think the fourth or the fifth type. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a fifth type. So dictionaries is very similar to list, except that we don't use the sequence of 0, 1, 2, 3. Like that is 0, there is 1, and here also 0, 1, 2, and so on. But instead we have keys, and the keys could be anything you want. I here added strings, so when I open the resulted thing, I can add a key, which is instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, the key will be red, and here is car, the, and so on. And each value will have, or each key will be, assigned another value. Could be, like a text, could be a string, could be number, anything you want. You just add this one to this one if you want, and you see that those keys will have different values here, and instead of having 0, 1, 2, 3. So you call the key and you get its index, and you get the value stored for that key. That's a little bit of a new concept, and not all of the Dynamo users actually prefer it, but it has its own benefits. Dear ladies and gents, Boolean is another type of data, and it's usually true or false, and you can control their value by adding this Boolean node, and it can result it out of a comparison and conditions sometimes to get, if you compare this number to this number, and the result should be true or false. This is very important in a complicated geometry, in a complicated scripts, to get more Dynamo to do more advanced type of work and sense what type of data you can provide, and based on that it can, change the decision of work or the type of functions you can do. The most obvious one is the geometry, and I spoke lots about that in the previous videos, in the two playlists that I have, the normal Dynamo playlist and the Dynamo course for beginners. And it could be a point, it could be a line, and we call line here, everything is line or curved, called curved here in Dynamo. It could be shapes like a circle or a rectangle, and that shape could have a surface built on it. And it could be a solid, whether it's a parametrically pre-made definition like a cube, or it could be any surface, any complex geometry, revolved geometry, swept geometry. There is lots of types of geometries, but I believe you got the idea that they have a physical. Here we are talking about physical representation. This physical representation are actually available inside Dynamo only for the current time. And this is the geometries. Vectors are like, they're similar to line, but they have a direction to them. And for example, this is the z-axis, defined by one value in x-axis, 0 in y, 0 in z, and then the length, which should be here 1. And you can decide the direction of the movement for any operation. You can make copies with the vectors. You can define, use them with the tangency conditions. They are very useful. Again, there is less people deal with them. If we have a look at the Dynamo videos posted on YouTube, but they are very, very useful. Coordinate system, or the CS, this is a good example for them, and a very basic one actually, and good in the same time. So they are like a local coordinate system. They are local X and Y, rather than the world X and Y system, which is provided in the intersection of X and Y and Z. And see this one? That's as if you are defining your own XY, but it's local and created at any specific point you want. It's very important because you can add object to it, rotate object based to it. You can rotate it itself and define any object or create any object on this specific coordinating system. You have also planes, and again they are unlimited indefinite horizontal surfaces that contain in a 2D space, have X and Y. They can go forever in X and they can go ever in Y. They are very important. They can intersect with any geometry and slice it, and I explained them in detail when I was creating a snowflake tower videos. Have a look at it, and lots of practice in it. Basically they can slice any 3D geometries and get their 2D projection at any point. They are very useful. Lots of other functions they can serve. U and V, again here you can trace the surface of any type of geometry, and where the U goes for a specific axis, and it can sense any point in it, and the V in the other direction. It can sense, and then with combining them you can make, you can define, you can build anything on any point defined by the amount of U it moved and the amount of V it moved as two coordination. This coordination is specific for this geometry, and this example is creating at the end UV value of an 0.2 for example in this direction, and I think it's 0.5, so it's half in that direction. This will give you like 0.5 half in this direction, and the 0.2, which is 20% of that overall. And when you are actually intersect them, you can define a point, and you can add a point to that location, and based on that point you can create anything you want. So they're super important in the advanced geometry, and specifically when you trace the surface of an object. Colors, they are really nice, and they can be used with conditions, of course, with analysis and optimization. to add some values, not only to presentation. Some people use them as a presentation tool. I cannot blame them because the visualization of Dynamo still need lots of work to be done on it, and it might be useful as a presentation, but the most advanced thing for the color will be, your ability to, use them in analysis, daylight analysis, I don't know, stress, structural, finding critical point on structural surfaces and slabs and everything related to that. Heat, whether they're cold and hot, if you are using a range or a color range. So there is color, which could be a single value, as you can see here, red, or you can use them in a range when you can see like a gradient of two color or one color to another color will be defined and can tell you how good and bad things based on the criteria you designed. We're almost done. Here is the last one. Actually, there is more than data types here in Dynamo. Those might be rare use, but the path is also defined and allow you to get any file location on your hard drive and define that as a type of an input. So these are type of data also. Less book are considering this as a type data, and some of them just describe them as a way of organizing the location of the input, but in reality you are getting and you are sending through these wires something, and this something is not numbers and it's not text and not string and not geometry. That's why I consider them as data. File also is what you can get as the actual information out of this location or path location. Image, as you can see, also type. Even some consider them as a matrix of colors, and because they can give them to color and get the pixel of each color, so they disregard that as a type of data. I don't blame them. They look at it as a matrix of or a big range, to x and y range of points. Each pixel have that value, and when you assemble them, you will get the same result. I do prefer to call them as a type of data that you can deal with inside Dynamo. And the last one, indeed, which is the most wide, and of course I cannot contain all of them in here, but you can find lots of samples here in the Revit side menu. And Revit element here is one of the most important and the most powerful in Dynamo, because we have Dynamo usually to work inside Revit platform. So these guys control the Revit elements, whether they are physical elements like a roof or like a wall, like a component, family component, something that have a physical representation and specific function, which is a Revit element, physical Revit elements, or constructional Revit element, whatever you want to call it. Or it could be a view. So it could be you are in need to create a specific view, like a plan view section or whatever, and the dimension, which is the annotation. And all type or majority of type of annotation you can add inside Dynamo and allow you to control what do you see and how you act and interact with the Revit itself, whether it's a project environment or conceptual mass that you have. Be aware, this is the Revit element might be a bit of a trap in here, because they are actually works based on the files you open in the background. So if you have a conceptual mass file, you will be having a specific types of these elements, and some of them are working and the others might not working. If you don't have the conceptual mass or the family editor opened, you have a normal Revit file, which we call the project environment file, you will find other types of nodes are only working in that. So you don't worry about that. You will get used to know which is which and where to use them. Anywho, I found that video were useful for you. I was trying quickly to demonstrate the overall types. I'll try in later videos to explain each, and with a good example, of course, a more practical example of each one of those types. Anyway, guys, again, thank you very much for watching me, and have a good day. Bye-bye.